Path of Exile 2 has a massive loot problem right now, and in this video I'll go over what is, in my opinion, the biggest contributing factor. And this issue affects pretty much everyone that plays the game, whether you're a high-end juicer or a more casual player, you're going to be impacted by this. And that is item rarity, because of course it is. This stat is very problematic because of exactly how it works. So rarity essentially refers to the rarity tier. It's shared across a few systems like monsters and items. For example, normal is the most basic form, then you have magic or blue, and then rare or yellow, and then unique. Normal is the most common rarity, whilst unique is the least common rarity. In the case of items, you can obtain a stat known as Increased Item Rarity or Increased Rarity of Items Found, commonly abbreviated to IIR. Increasing this stat will improve the chance for items to upgrade in rarity tiers. So by improving your item rarity stat, you'll essentially see less normal items and see more magic, rare and unique items. No problems so far, but then we get onto another system within item rarity known as item tiering. So the item tiering system is what's used to improve the chance of scaling up rarity on an item, but it also does a number of other things. Firstly, it creates the chance for unidentified items to drop with a tier, 2 through 5. Obtaining more and more increased item rarity will provide a higher chance to see higher tiers in this system. So with more rarity, you'll see less tier 2s and more tier 3s, for example. The dropped unidentified item tier relates to the modifiers on the item upon being identified, with higher tiered items culling more lower level modifiers, which results in identified items with higher level modifiers on average. Now this part of the item tiering system is actually very good, and it's exactly what you'd expect from item rarity, because items are not only made up from their rarity, but they also have modifiers which has a weighting system, with some modifiers being much rarer than others as a result of having lower weight. So it makes sense that investing into item rarity would yield items of higher rarity, not just in terms of their actual rarity, but also their modifiers as well. However, the item tiering system also does something else. It affects currency drops. And in my opinion, this is the absolute worst design decision that has ever been made for Path of Exile 2. So firstly, currency items do not have a visible rarity tier like items do. And for players, the only real way to determine how rare a currency item is to play a lot and notice the scarcity of currency drops compared to others, or have it indicated to you by a loot filter that makes a sound that you may not have heard all that often, or by looking at the currency exchange and comparing the gold cost of exchanging, which is how these rarity tiers have been estimated here on the wiki page. And obviously this list is currently missing the new greater and perfect currencies, but you can see exactly what is going on here. You have rarity tiers just like with items, but these tiers are hidden. So increasing your item rarity improves the chance for dropped currency items to upgrade in tier. For example, a wisdom scroll upgrading to a transmute, or a regal upgrading to a divine orb or an orb of an omen. Or if you're really lucky, it could be an orb of chance upgrading into a mirror of Calandra. And notably, these tiers are separate between the different types of currency, for example, normal currency or socket currency. Now here's the thing, currency has two primary use cases. The first one is the obvious one, crafting. You use the currency item exactly as it was intended to be used, to craft items. The second is trading. You trade the currency item, valued in its crafting potential, to someone else, to get something in return that you value. It's important to distinguish these two use cases because of their impact on SSF and trade. In SSF, only the first use case is important because obviously you can't trade. However, that doesn't make currency any less valuable. In fact, if anything, it means that you're more pressed to loot the currency that you need to be able to actually craft good items. Meanwhile, in Trade League, both use cases apply. You need currency to either craft good items or buy good items from other players. And this means that naturally, no matter what build you're playing, no matter how you're playing the game, you need to fit increased item rarity affixes into your character stats. And you may think, it's not too bad, it's only a small improvement to your loot. but that's simply not the case. Increased item rarity makes a massive difference, and this league we actually have a lot of information coming out from various tests that creators have been doing. Farham did some tests with fixed character IIR running Zest encounters, where he tracked equipment drops, and came to the conclusion that character item rarity has extremely heavy diminishing returns beyond 150%. But his results also showcased a very large improvement going from 100% to 150%. And then, a few days after that, Crip made a video about item rarity, and he then spoke to the devs that provided some information to elaborate on these findings. And GGG have confirmed that there is an intentional steep drop-off beyond 150% character IIR, and that map rarity is a completely separate multiplier, which is something that we pretty much already knew, but map rarity also does not have any diminishing returns. They also mentioned that the currency does upgrade in rarity, but the system for this, quote, is the most different type of system compared to the others. But we don't get any additional information on what exactly that means. So, to summarize these findings, improving your increased item rarity essentially makes you drop more of the things you want to drop and less of the stuff you don't. But you really want increased item rarity on your gear specifically because this is a separate rarity multiplier. You can't obtain this anywhere else, and it affects currency, and things such as the new Abyssal Omens, which also have hidden rarity by the way, which makes it so important that it simply cannot be ignored. Beyond that, the exact amount of IIR you have from gear is also very important. Going from 0 to 50% is massive, but ultimately you're going to want to aim for 150% because that's the sweet spot. You can't really make up for the difference in loot in another way, and this means that with this information now out in the open and with it confirmed by GGG, we're going to have a rarity problem when it comes to builds. Not that it wasn't already a problem, of course, but I imagine now that every build is going to call for 150% increased item rarity from gear. Every build is going to prioritize getting this stat to that number, and if your build doesn't do that, it's bad. And here's the crazy thing. Back when there were discussions in interviews about life being on the passive tree, the response from GGG was that life being on the tree in PoE 1 felt like a mandatory stat. You had to path to it and take it no matter what. And to that I'd say that I actually don't believe that that was the case, but regardless, isn't this just exactly that? Increased item rarity on gear is a mandatory stat in Path of Exile 2. It doesn't matter if you're playing SSF or Trade League, you're actively stunting your character progression if you do not invest into this stat. In SSF you will see a lot less of the currency items that you need to craft good items, and in trade, if you don't have item rarity on your gear, you'll very quickly fall behind and inflation will leave you in the dust. Now for me, the really baffling thing here is that Path of Exile 1's item rarity system never included currency, and that made sense because currency does not have a visible rarity. The rarity system in PoE 1 works just fine. In fact, it's great. You still have magic find characters that farm with massive amounts of increased item rarity, specifically farming the rarest unique items in the game. But you don't feel like this is a mandatory stat on any other build. In fact, rarity feels like a pretty terrible stat unless you are actually wanting to heavily invest into it and farm those rare unique items. Which is essentially the exact opposite of PoE 2, where this stat feels incredibly valuable all the way up to 150% on your gear, and it's so good that you just need to prioritize it even early on in character progression. I believe that item rarity mechanics should not include currency. It's as simple as that. But what are your thoughts on the rarity system in PoE 2, and do you think GGG will change this system in a future version of the game? Let me know by commenting below. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.